Here we go, Solak. I don't know what you're going to talk about. You probably don't know much about what I'm going to talk about. I took some low-hanging fruit here early because I want to get some predictions on the record before things start happening. So I am first with my take. I have narrowed Kirk Cousins' landing spots to 3 teams. I think he will play for one of these 3 teams in 2024. At the end, I'm going to tell you my official prediction of what I think is going to happen with Kirk Cousins. And so if you're listening to this saying, didn't you guys talk about Kirk Cousins the last show? We did. That's true. But this is a huge storyline only because above average quarterbacks pretty much never hit free agency. He cannot be franchise tagged. He's going to be on the market. If he wants to go out there, test the market, he's able to do that. He's 36 years old. He's coming off an Achilles, but he's going to get monster money. So like I was looking for my free agency rankings. I like to project in my head, all right, how much are these guys going to make? Like, I think he's going to get like 2 years, 80 million, maybe fully guaranteed for Kirk Cousins. How do you feel about that? When I just throw that number out there, are you like, ooh, that's high, that's low? I could see myself doing that if I were a team. Like, just when I spit those numbers out, what comes to mind?
Yeah. I'm fine with that. I feel like I saw a rumor that was like, oh, Kirk's like the NFL's not going to give Kirk a fully guaranteed deal this time around. And it's like, okay, well, why not? At this point, he's super old and it's going to be short-term contracts. Like, the likelihood of you structuring a deal where you can like actually cut him after year 2 and save money in year 3, like that just like, to me, that world doesn't exist in the quarterback market right now for a player of Kirk Cousins' caliber. So I like fully guaranteed, not fully guaranteed, functionally guaranteed. Like I expect him to play out the length of a deal he gets because I don't think he's going to get like a 4 or 5 year deal. It's going to be like a 2 year, 3 year deal. $40 million obviously feels rich, but like it's Daniel Jones money. And I know I've said Daniel Jones' contract like 19,000 times since it was signed. But I am not an agent at all. I would be a terrible agent. Even I can tell you, every quarterback agent in the world going to be walking into every single negotiation with like, here's the Daniel Jones deal. Do you see this? We're going to beat this. And so, yeah, like 2 over 80, like seems like it would make sense for Kirk. And okay, you bring him out there. By week 6, it's very clear that like he doesn't trust the Achilles. It didn't come back to full health. He's not springing in the pocket. He's taking sacks. He can't relocate. And it's a wash. 280 barely hurts, man. 80 million over 2 years. Like the Broncos about to eat 80 million in 1 year on Russell Wilson, dude. Like that doesn't even count the years that they actually paid him. That to me, like that rings right about home for Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, the other one you mentioned, Daniel Jones. Derek Carr got $37.5 million per year last offseason with $60 million guaranteed. Now the cap has gone up. Cousins has been a better quarterback than Derek Carr. The overall quarterback market has gone up. So I think that's the range we're talking about. You're right, though. I mean, there is risk with Kirk Cousins given age and Achilles. So that has to be mentioned. All right, here are my 3 teams. Number 1 is the obvious one, the Minnesota Vikings. Okay, this would be reasonable. They could just look at it and say, we wish we had a younger quarterback. We wish we had a long-term plan right now, but we don't. We have 2 very good wide receivers. We have good offensive tackles. We have a good offensive head coach. We have a good defensive coordinator who did more with less last year. We'll sign him for 2 for $80. We'll keep him around, and that will buy us some time to figure out a younger option at quarterback. It doesn't preclude us from looking for that younger option, but in the meantime, they keep using that word competitive rebuild. It allows us to continue to do that. So that's number 1, the Minnesota Vikings. Number 2, this was originally your idea, Solak. And when I look at the other teams around the NFL that could potentially be a surprise team for Kirk Cousins, I keep coming back to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, I'm putting together, my little offseason spreadsheet. All right, for pending free agents and what kind of shape is this team in? And I'm looking at that Steelers roster. I'm doing it earlier than ever. Solak, I like a lot of the players on this roster. I like the pass catchers. I like the running backs. I think they maybe make a move or 2 on the offensive line. They brought in Arthur Smith. The defense finished 6th in DVOA last year. Like, that's one of those that I forget a month later. Wow, they were 6th in DVOA. Right. They still got TJ Watt, your boy, Joey Porter Jr.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. They had injuries. It's not like they had they still got Minka. They still got TJ. So they've got a good defense, I think. And then they've got Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph. You cannot go into next season with Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph. Like, that is a legit, I'm usually the pro Steelers guy on this podcast. I will crush them. That is an organizational failure. If we get to August 1st, July 27th, whatever it is, training camp starting, and that's who they're going into training camp with. I mean, that's a disaster. You cannot do that. So now it comes down to, what are their options? Kirk Cousins, Justin Fields, like a Jacoby Brissett. And I just look at it with Cousins, that it's a very interesting team for me for like the next 2 years. Kirk Cousins, Arthur Smith, the supporting cast. So that's number 2 for me. And then the third one was a little bit difficult to come up with. This is one where I don't think it's a good idea. Like the Steelers, I'm in on that idea. But this is one where I could see the team thinking it's a good idea. And that's the Las Vegas Raiders. So this is more of a could than a should, because I was looking at the Raiders. Raiders are in very good kind of cap situation this offseason. Like, they can be a weirdly aggressive team if they want to. Now, do I think they should do that? Probably not. I mean, I don't know how this is going to work. This arranged marriage, Antonio Pierce and Tom Telesco, they've got the 13th overall pick, but I could see them being a team saying, hey, we've got Devontae Adams. Our defense overperformed last year. Bring Kirk Cousins in here, and we can have a nice, a solid to maybe slightly above average offense, and we can be competitive this season. So that's the third team I've got my eye on. All right, those are the 3 teams. What do you think? Vikings, Steelers, Raiders. Did I miss one? Do you like any of those? Do you not like any of those? How are you feeling?
I'm surprised that the Falcons didn't make it. That would have been one that I would have strongly guessed. If you'd made me guess the 3 you were doing, I would have said Steelers, Vikings, and Falcons with a lot of confidence. I'm surprised that the Raiders came in over the Falcons. I agree that the Raiders could do it. I agree that it would be a bad decision, right? You need a bridge quarterback. If you're the Raiders, you don't need to build that expensive of a bridge. I think you just get a regular bridge. That's a beautiful bridge, Kirk Cousins. I don't think that's necessary. Atlanta to me is a team where, like, okay, Sean McVay says Zach Robinson, like there's going to be familiarity in the offense. The language is going to be exactly the same. They have a young weapon in Drake London, a young weapon in Kyle Pitts, a young weapon in Bijan Robinson. They invested a lot of money in that offensive line. Jake Matthews, Chris Lindstrom, Caleb McGarry. Like, internally, that offense looks like it should be a quarterback away. There's a chance that Zach Robinson, who's the OC there, I guess, to come to that McVay system, along with head coach Raheem Morris, look at it and go, we don't actually feel that way. Because remember, these aren't their guys that they went and built this around. But Terry Fontenot, who was the general manager, who's responsible for a lot of these extensions in these young players, the guy who built it, he's still there, and I think that he would like to justify his picks and statistically Drake London is underperformed and Kyle Pitts is underperformed. But if you look at the film, like these are good players. They should be having productive seasons. I could see Fontenot being like, I want to go get a Kirk and prove that this offense that I've put together works. And so Atlanta's the team that stands out to me that I think should be on your list that isn't right now.
It's a good one. I don't have a good sense of what the Falcons think they are. They change the head. What are they trying to do this offseason? I mean, because Kirk Cousins to me is a short-term fix. And so I look at it and I tend to lean more towards a team like the Steelers, where I say they could be really now maybe the Falcons think, hey, we could be really interesting with Kirk Cousins, and maybe they could be. So I think that's a good one that I left off there. All right, my official prediction here, Solak. I think he's going to stay in Minnesota.
Oh, yeah?
You're looking at the Vikings.
Spicy.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the 11th overall pick. So it's like, are they going to be aggressive, or are they going to try to land a quarterback in the draft? And if not, I just don't know, they're going to go out and get somebody else to play quarterback who's a lot cheaper? Are they going to look for a Band-Aid option? Is that where they think they're going to be? That's not really how they've operated. I mean, they haven't done a lot in the last few seasons that really prioritizes rebuilding. They got rid of some older players a little bit, but for the most part, there's been an emphasis there on, no, we want to be competitive. So I think when it comes down to it, they know Cousins' medical situation really well. I don't know that they want big turnover this offseason, and I kind of feel like he's going to stick there. They're going to pay him, and then they're going to figure out a younger option down the road. What do you think? What is your on-the-record prediction for where Cousins lands?
I think it goes to the Steelers. I think that spot makes the most sense.
All right. Yeah. That'd be so fun for content.
Right. You said you don't think Pittsburgh can go into August, into the season at status quo. I'm not sure the Steelers can go into the draft at status quo at quarterback, right? You don't want to be in a spot where you're forcing your hand at what do they got, 22, 21? No. because there's 14 playoff teams, like 19. You don't want to be forcing your hand at that pick, 20, Kenny Pickett, whatever. Where you're like, all right, we got to go get.
They've got the 20th pick. 20. Yep.
Yeah, let's go get JJ McCarthy. Like we're going to be that team. Like you don't want to be in that shoehorn. That doesn't mean you have to go get Kirk Cousins, but I expect him to be very active on the free agent quarterback market. Now, if that's Brian Tannehill, because he knows Arthur Smith's system, and then we go and get a young guy, I'm perfectly fine with that. But I think they're going to be they're the team that I expect to be most active on the veteran quarterback market. And if Kirk actually emphatically hits that market, they're in a spot right where I think like there's a little bit extra heat on Mike Tomlin. I think Omar Khan's kind of driving that ship a little bit more personnel wise. They make sense as a team to say, you know, we need that expensive bridge. We need that quarterback who can come in and very clearly emphasize that we are still competitive. This is a high caliber AFC North. We can still hang around in this. Obviously, we're going to plan for the future at quarterback, but right now, if we get a guy in here, we'll be fine.
Yeah, they've got a lot of good players there. You stick them in there, there should be familiarity with the scheme, so I like that. All right, Solak says Steelers. I say Vikings. Other teams to keep an eye on, Raiders. And Solak says Falcons for Kirk Cousins. All right.